Good afternoon, everyone. Today's topic for the presentation is CTBA. So the main pulmonary artery is intrapericardial and courses posteriorly and superiorly from the pulmonic valve. It divides into left pulmonary artery and right pulmonary artery at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra. The RPA is longer than the LPA and crosses the mediastinum, sloping slightly inferiorly to the right lung hilus. The left pulmonary artery represents a continuation of main pulmonary artery. The LPA lies to the left and lateral to carina. The main pulmonary artery conveys the venous blood from the right ventricle of the heart to the lungs. It is a short, wide vessel, about 5 centimeters in length and 3 centimeters in diameter, arising from the conus arteriosus of the right ventricle. It extends obliquely upward and backward, passing at first in front and then to the left of the ascending aorta, as far as the undersurface of the aortic arch, where it divides into right and left branches. So this is the aorta. This is the right pulmonary artery, left pulmonary artery. The right branch of the pulmonary artery, longer and larger than the left, runs horizontally to the right, behind the ascending aorta and superior inferior cava, in the form of the right bronchus, in the front of the right bronchus, the root of the right lung, where it divides into two branches. The lower and the larger of these goes to the middle and lower lobes of the lung. The upper and the smaller is distributed to the upper lobe. The left branch of the pulmonary artery is shorter and smaller than the right. It lies to the left and lateral to the carina as it crosses over left main stem bronchus. Then it divides into two branches, one for each lobe of the lung. The normal diameter of main pulmonary artery is about 2/3 that of ascending aorta and should not exceed 29 mm. Segmental and subsegmental pulmonary arteries generally parallel segmental and subsegmental bronchi, uh, and run alongside them. This is in contrast to the course of most pulmonary veins, which runs independently of bronchi within interlobular septa. The segmental arteries are named according to the bronchopulmonary segments that they feed, and we follow the Jackson and Huber classification in this description. The proximal portion of the arteries to the posterior subsegment of the left upper lobe and lingular arteries can run independently of their respective bronchi for short segments. Also, there are frequently accessory arteries from neighboring segments, particularly in the right upper lobe. Segmental and subsegmental pulmonary arteries vary considerably in the location of their origin, in whether they rise as common trunks with other arteries or as separate arteries on the number. Pulmonary artery brings the venous blood to the lungs. The second vascular network, the bronchial circulation, draws 1% of cardiac output and supplies nutrients of the lung, but do not participate in blood oxygenation. However, whenever pulmonary flow decreases, hypertrophy of bronchial artery develops. This is the contrast injected in the pulmonary artery, early arterial phase. Late arterial phase, where we see the distal branches of pulmonary artery. Arterial to capillary, pulmonary capillary beds is now visible. And this is the pulmonary capillaries and veins that is visible now. Now venous phase, wherein the pulmonary veins and left heart is seen. This is the coronal image representing the same. This is the diaphragmatic representation of the same thing. At the right lung hilus, the RPA divides into superior trunk and inferior trunk. Uncus arteriosus supplies the right upper lobe, and the interlobar artery, which runs in the interlobar fissure and parallels the bronchus intermedius, supplies the right middle and right lower lobes. The truncus artery and anterior has a course which is anterior to the right upper lobe bronchus and is usually terminates in the apical anterior segment arteries, which are both of which usually divides into paired subsegmental arteries, the A3 and A3B respectively. The LP arches over the superior aspect of the left upper lobe bronchus to first supply the left upper lobe. There is no left truncus anterior, and there tends to be more separate branches scattered along the course of the left pulmonary artery than there are along the course of the right pulmonary artery. This is the diaphragmatic representation of same. The right middle lobe has lateral and medial segments, which by definition have pulmonary arterial supply from A4 and A5 respectively. In approximately one half of individuals, A4 and A5 rises as separate branches from the intermedial aspect of the interlobar artery, and in one half of individuals, they arise as a common trunk at this location before dividing. Uncommonly, three separate trunks are seen, either A4 or A5, or may have a common origin. With a lower lobe segmental artery, however, a branch of the medial segmental artery may cross segmental boundaries and also supply the anterior aspect of the lateral segment. Caudal to the origin of right main middle lobe artery, the interlobar artery becomes the right lower lobe artery, at about the same level as the origin of the right middle lobe arteries and opposite to them. The right lower lobe artery gives off the posterior oriented artery to the superior segment of the right lower lobe, A6. However, in approximately 20% of individuals, A6 arises as two or very rarely three separate arteries from the right lower lobe artery. There are often three identifiable subsegmental arteries within the superior segment of the right lower lobe, any two of which may have common trunk. The left upper lobe pulmonary arterial branches may arise in fairly random order, and they frequently form small trunks of two or more branches. 2 to 7 branches may originate from proximal LPA to supply the left upper lobe and lingula. The anterior segmental pulmonary arterial supply arises from the anterior aspect of the mediastinum portion of LPA, and A3 typically subdivides into three portions. The subsegmental A3 arteries may arise as separate branch from the LPA. However, A3 or a subsegmental branch of it has common trunk with part of all A1 plus 2 in approximately 40% of individuals. This is the upper left pulmonary artery A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, and A7, A8. The left lower lobe bronchus is shorter than the right lower lobe bronchus. So the left lower lobe bronchi and their accompanying arteries originate at slightly higher level than those of right. Superior segmental artery supply A6 of the left lower lobe originates from the interlobar artery at or above the level of the lingular arteries, usually as a single trunk. However, the superior segmental pulmonary arterial supply frequently arises as two or more separate trunks. Occasionally, A6 arises from a lingular artery. There are often three identifiable subsegmental arteries within the superior segment of the lower lobe, any two of which may have a common trunk. This is the A1, A3 ascending artery, interlobar artery, A6 branch, A4 interlobar artery, A4, A5, A8, 9, 10, and A7. This is the A7, A8, A9, 10 arteries. A7, A8, A9, A10. This is the left pulmonary artery, A3 branch, A1, 2 branch. This is A1, 2 branch, A3 branch, A1, 2 branch. This is the interlobar artery. This is the A6, A4 interlobar artery, A5 branch. This is the left A7, A8, A9, and A10 branch. Then pulmonary thromboembolism topic. Pulmonary embolism is the third most common acute cardiovascular disease after myocardial infarction and stroke. Over 290,000 cases of fatal pulmonary thromboembolism and 230,000 cases of non-fatal pulmonary embolism are estimated to occur in US every year. Additional cases may not be diagnosed because symptoms such as chest pain, shortness of breath, tachycardia, etc. are non-specific and may mimic other pulmonary or cardiac conditions. Unsuspected PE continues to be a frequent autopsy finding. It has been further estimated that over 80% of pulmonary embolism cases are associated with deep vein thrombosis. It is therefore easy to see why PE for purposes of diagnosis and treatment is often considered a complication or a consequence of DVT. Concern with this approach is that same case of PE due to embolization from other sites such as pelvic or upper extremity veins or the right heart or even from in situ thrombosis. And diagnostic efforts in radiology are aimed at reaching an acceptable level of diagnostic certainty of PE to warrant anticoagulant therapy using the least invasive test and excluding other reasons for the patient symptom. There have also been major technological advances, primarily in computed tomography and magnetic resonance imaging. Many clinical studies have evaluated these modalities and also the use of imaging in conjunction with clinical criteria and serum assay for D-dimer. High sensitivity D-dimer testing using an ELISA has improved the specificity of the diagnosis of pulmonary embolism. D-dimer levels will be elevated with any significant thrombotic process. So this test is of limited value in pregnant, post-op, and trauma patients. It is also of limited value in patients determined to be at high risk of PE by validated clinical criteria. In all other settings, a negative D-dimer test effectively excludes pulmonary embolism or DVT. These are the modalities that we use: chest X-ray, PA lateral view, CTPA, CTV, USG duplex, D-dimer, VQ scan, cardiac cath, and MRA. Chest radiography, the posterior, anterior, and the lateral chest radiography is an important initial study in the evaluation of suspected pulmonary embolism. Chest radiograph may eliminate the need for additional radiographic procedures by revealing an alternate reason for acute symptoms such as pneumonia or large effusion. A normal chest radiograph does not exclude PE, and there is no specific findings that are sufficient to confirm PE. A recent chest radiograph is required to allow accurate interpretation of an abnormal radionuclide ventilation perfusion lungs. Plain films, what we see is Fleischner's sign, which is enlarged pulmonary artery, Hampton's hump, that is peripheral wedge of airspace opacity and implies lung infarction, Westermarck sign, that is regional oligemia and highest positive predictive value, pleural effusion and knuckle sign. Westermarck sign has got high specificity 92% and negative predictive value of 76%. Hampton's hump has got 82% specificity and 76% negative predictive value. Chest X-ray is routinely performed in acute dyspneic patients. More than 40 years, only 14% normal findings are there, but less than 40 years, 68% of normal findings will be seen. Only 13% in acute findings and 18% chronic findings will be seen. So chest X-ray is not implicated unless physical exam plus or hemoptysis is present. So what we see in chest X-ray is increased pulmonary artery diameter, that is Fleischner's sign, oligemia, that is Westermarck sign, and pleural-based wedge-shaped opacity, that is Hampton's hump. This is the X-ray image demonstrating the increased pulmonary artery diameter, that is Fleischner's sign. This is the oligemia that we see in pulmonary thromboembolism because of this is Westermarck sign, and this is Hampton's hump, pleural-based wedge-shaped opacity. So useful to exclude is pneumothorax, pneumonia, edema, pleural effusion. So chest X-ray is not recommended for initial evaluation unless suspected PE is there. Appropriate when clinic X-ray laboratory tests are non-relieving from non-diagnostic. CT allows confident diagnosis or limited differential diagnosis. So COPD, fibrosis, bronchiectasis, pneumoconiosis, interstitial lung disease are samples. CT pulmonary angiography or CTPA is the gold standard. Multi-detector CTPA is indicated in the evaluation of patients suspected of having a PE. CTPA is now the primary imaging modality for evaluating patients suspected of having acute PE. Technological advancements in CT from helical to multi-detector have led to improved resolution of the pulmonary arteries, large and small. Numerous studies have examined the accuracy of CTPA compared to ventilation and perfusion, VQ-image and conventional angiography. Multiple studies have shown that CTPA is highly sensitive and specific discrepancy with conventional angiography are mainly at the subsegmental level, where even angiographers tend to have poor intra-observer agreement. Intra-observer and inter-observer variability for CTPA have been shown to be very good to segmental level, better than VQ imaging. The overall accuracy of CTPA appears to be very high and is even higher when combined with clinical assessment and serum D-dimer testing. Positive CTPA results combined with high or intermediate suspicion on clinical assessment has a high positive predictive value. In patients with low clinical suspicion and a negative CTPA, acute pulmonary embolism can safely be ruled out. In addition, the adjunctive use of CT venography with CTPA improves the sensitivity of detecting DVT with similar specificity, thereby increasing the overall accuracy of diagnosis of thromboembolic disease as compared to an isolated diagnosis of PE. CTPA can also identify signs of right ventricular dysfunction that may have prognostic significance or implication for treatment. Measurement of right ventricular enlargement and reflex of contrast to the IVC have been used among other indices to gauge right ventricular dysfunction and predict patient mortality. Recent technological advancements such as ECG-guided CT and dual source CT have allowed accurate evaluation of the pulmonary vasculature, thoracic aorta and coronary arteries on a single CT study. This is called triple rule out. CT protocol has been shown to be feasible, although it is yet to be proven useful or cost effective. Through large-scale clinical trials, it is possible that the triple rule out CT will become routine in the evaluation of certain patients with acute chest pain in the future. So pulmonary embolism is acute PE is common as compared to subacute and chronic. Acute PE carries high mortality rate if left untreated. Clinical presentation is highly variable and non-specific. Diagnosis requires appropriate and accurate imaging. Prompt diagnosis and treatment can reduce mortality from 30% to 8%. Pathophysiology includes the PE most commonly arises from thrombi in deep venous system of lower extremities. Iliofemoral vein thrombi most clinically recognized cause of PE. 50 to 80% of proximal vein thrombi originate distal to the popliteal vein. Size of pulmonary embolism determines location of the main pulmonary artery, lobar branches, and subsegmental emboli. Multi-detector helical CT pulmonary angiography as increasingly the first line imaging modality carries 96% specificity. and 96% positive predictive value. Advantages of multi-detector helical CT pulmonary angiography is diagnosis of alternate disease entities can be done. Coverage of entire chest with high spatial resolution and one breath hold. Availability, improved depiction of small peripheral emboli. Size, site, number of emboli can be seen, and plan management. Limitations that the CT pulmonary angiography carries is reader's expertise is required. Expense requires precise timing of contrast bolus, radiation exposure, not portable, contraindications to contrast, that is renal insufficiency and contrast allergy. Multi-detector CT technique, what we use is parameters vary by scanner equipment, Siemens, GE, anyone. Contrast material bolus, duration of injection should approximately be the duration of scan. Desired flow rate is 3 to 5 ml per second, usually 50 to 80 ml we give. Best results is achieved if there is thin sections, high and homogeneous enhancement of pulmonary vessels, data acquisition and single breath hold. So CT protocol, what we follow is on 16 slice MDCT scanner is 120 kV, 300 mA, slice thickness of 1 mm, table speed of 1520 per rotation, non-ionic iodinated contrast agent 370 milligram iodine per ml at the rate of 2 ml per kg body weight. In adult can give 100 ml, ideally 50 to 80. The injection rate was 1 ml per second in children and 3 ml per second in adult. An automated tracking system with a density of 130 HU in the pulmonary artery was used to initiate scanning. Images were reconstructed at 0.8 mm slice thickness. So what findings we see in multi-detector CT is partial or complete filling defects in lumen of pulmonary arteries. The most reliable sign is filling defect, forming acute angle with the vessel wall with defect outlined by contrast material. Tram track sign is seen when there is parallel lines of contrast surrounding thrombus in vessel that travels in transverse plane. Rim sign is contrast surrounding thrombus in vessel that travels orthogonal to transverse plane, or polo mint sign. RV strain indicated by straightening or leftward bowing of the interventricular system. The CDPN can demonstrate endoluminal clots where pulmonary angiography and VQ lungs can show mild, commonly indirect signs of PE such as regional perfusion defect or abrupt cutoff of pulmonary arteries. Central partial intravascular luminal defect surrounding the contrast median presenting as polo mint sign, and the railway sign when parallel to the long axis. Eccentric parallel filling defect or mural defect surrounded by CM, contrast media, presenting an acute angle with the vessel wall. Complete filling defect not surrounded by contrast media and occupying the entire arterial vessel section. The corresponding artery is frequently dilated corresponding with the other side. This is massive acute pulmonary embolism in an 85-year-old woman. You can see filling defect. This is again a filling defect. This is a polo mint sign that we see. This is again a filling defect, the right main pulmonary artery. This is the thrombus lodged in the left pulmonary artery and segmental pulmonary artery. Again, a filling defect of thrombus lodged in the left pulmonary artery. Again, filling defects can be best appreciated. This is the segmental and subsegmental pulmonary embolism. This is again acute clot in the subsegmental division of this pulmonary artery. This is how it looks like in non-contrast scan. When we give contrast, we can see tumor thrombus getting lodged in the right pulmonary artery. This is the clot in the subsegmental arteries associated with subsegmental collapse. This is the small arrowhead is demonstrating small pulmonary infarct or Hampton's hump. There is pleural-based consolidation as well. This is again a good demonstration of what Hampton's hump looks like. Infarct. The criteria in acute PE, subacute PE, and chronic PE is that in acute PE there is central filling defect, eccentric interluminal, whereas in subacute PE there will be wall adherent, forming acute angle. Vascular wall, intrapulmonary vascular size is dilated or normal in acute and dilated normal in subacute. Parenchyma is infiltrated, leading to hemorrhage. There is round or wedge-shaped pleural-based consolidation, whereas in subacute we see pleural-based wedge-shaped consolidation. Both will have pleural fusion. In acute PE, right heart enlargement with normal wall thickness is appreciated. And in subacute PE, there is interventricular septal shift. Whereas in chronic, the filling defect will appear as wall adherent or obtuse angle. There will be irregular wall thickening of the vascular wall, blue effusion. Parenchyma will demonstrate plate-like atelectasis, mosaic perfusion, bronchial dilatation in abnormal areas. Pulmonary hypertension, we have right heart enlargement with thickening of the wall, negative axis of interventricular septum. So this is the coronal reformatted image showing large saddle thrombus with extensive clot burden lodged here. This area. This is the Poloman sign. This is the arrow indicating the rim sign. This is the arrow indicating the tram track sign. These are the arrow indicating the acute pulmonary embolus affecting the left main pulmonary artery. This is the evidence of railway track sign. This is again railway track sign or the thrombus getting lodged in the left pulmonary artery. Acute occlusive pulmonary embolism in a 32-year-old pulmonary embolus within the posterior basal segment of right lower lobe artery. This is in the lateral basal segment of the right lobar artery, the rim sign. There are again acute emboli that affect subsegmental arteries of the lateral basal segment. This is a pulmonary embolus that results in an eccentrically positioned partial filling defect, which is surrounded by contrast medium. This is surrounded by contrast medium. Forms an acute angle with the arterial wall. This is the CT scan shows an acute pulmonary embolism with an ancillary finding of a peripheral wedge-shaped opacity, wedge-shaped area of hyperattenuation in the lung, and finding that may represent an infarct as well as linear band arrowhead. This is unenhanced CT scan, and this is a contrast enhanced CT scan demonstrating the pulmonary embolism within the right main and left interlobal pulmonary arteries. These are again acute pulmonary embolism in the right posterior basal segment, subsegmental artery. Again, a rim sign or Poloman sign that we can see. This is acute pulmonary embolism where we see posterior basal segmental artery of right lower lobe. This is the contrast which is in the periphery of that, demonstrating the railway track sign. Again, in the right lower lobe and left enteromedial basal segmental arteries, thrombus. These are all thrombotic occlusion seen in the right lung vessels, along with collateral blood supply from a branch of right hemidiaphragmatic artery. Chronic pulmonary embolism, eccentrically located thrombus that forms obtuse angle with the vessel wall. Here we can see the obtuse wall, obtuse, dilated contralateral bronchial artery is noted. This is again chronic pulmonary embolism, saddle thrombus, large chronic pulmonary embolism in the main and left main pulmonary arteries. This is pulmonary arterial wall calcification that we can see. Secondary sign of chronic pulmonary embolism. These are all, the arrow is demonstrating the pouch defect of the anterior basal segment artery of right lower lobe, and the arrowheads are demonstrating the contracted or obliterated artery, the peripheral site of the chronic obstruction, obliterated artery. This is again chronic pulmonary embolism at the level of right lower lobe pulmonary artery, broad-based, smoothly marginated, eccentric filling defect that forms obtuse angle with the vessel wall. This is again abrupt convergence of contrast material leading to thin column of more distal IV contrast material in case of chronic pulmonary embolism. Chronic pulmonary embolism in a 54-year-old man, CT axial CT scan, image of right lower lobe pulmonary artery shows band or web. The arrow is demonstrating the band or web that we can also see. This is the right ventricular dilatation with large acute pulmonary embolism, clot burden. So what are the anatomic pitfalls? Is that pulmonary arteries run with bronchi and pulmonary veins, they run independent. So unossified veins record impaction, lymphadenopathy in perivascular tissue and other pathologies like shunt and sarcomas can mimic that. Imaging artifacts like streak artifact, motion artifact, bolus, improper bolus timing, inconsistent fracture bolus stage, Inadequate window setting and patient size will cause problems. Both acute and chronic pulmonary emboli are identified as interluminal filling defects. Diagnostic criteria for acute pulmonary embolism includes complete arterial occlusion with failure to ossify the entire lumen. Artery may be enlarged in comparison with pulmonary arteries of the same order of branching. A central arterial filling defect surrounded by IV contrast material and a peripheral interluminal filling defect that makes an acute angle with the arterial lumen. Look for the signs like Wester marks, Fleischner's, and Hampton sum. The diagnostic criteria for chronic pulmonary embolism includes complete occlusion of a vessel that is permanently smaller than pulmonary arteries of the same order of branching. Contrast material flowing through apparently thick walled arteries that are smaller due to recanalization, and web in a contrast filled artery and an interluminal filling defect. Indirect signs of acute and chronic pulmonary embolism. You can have three major cause of mosaic lung attenuation are airway disease, chronic pulmonary embolism, and interstitial lung disease. So three things we have to keep in mind. And oligemia, where there is decrease in flow rates due to acute pulmonary embolism. So right ventricular strain of failure is optimally monitored on echocardiography. However, some morphologic abnormalities that indicate right ventricular failure can be quantified by CTPA. The most robust CT sign is right ventricular dilatation. The greater the right ventricle to left ventricle short axis ratio in acute pulmonary embolism, the greater the risk of death. MDCT and dyspnea. CT can identify alternative cause other than PE in dyspneic patients, also potentially life-threatening. Emerging use of whole chest ECG gated CT reinforces the role of CTA in acute clinical setting. Recent advances in MDCT have improved patient care by minimizing diagnostic delay. Assessment of cardio CAD as potential cause of dyspnea. Prognostic information in PE patients, right ventricular failure, useful to guide therapeutic decisions, surgery, or thrombolysis. An abnormal pattern of regional lung perfusion may suggest the diagnosis of PE, but it is not specific. It requires evaluation of the anatomic basis of the perfusion defect. So at least one study says that using single photon emission computed tomography imaging improves the sensitivity and specificity of VQ scintigraphy. Lung scan sometimes may be indicated in pregnant women. So doing so may minimize the radiation absorbed dose. If MAA perfusion scan is performed first and is normal, the ventilation scan can be avoided. MAA perfusion imaging without ventilation may be indicated, particularly when the condition of the patient suddenly deteriorates and acute PE is suspected as a significant contributing cause. PQ scan, what are the advantages? Excellent negative predictive value, 97%. Can be used in patients with contraindication to contrast medium. It has got certain limitations like 30 to 50% of patients have non-diagnostic scan necessity. Given the accuracy of CTP, however, unacceptably low levels of certainty are increasingly rare. Further, the experience of the radiologist who performs and interprets this invasive procedure is crucial. So, as indicated, studies suggest that the overall accuracy of catheter pulmonary angiography may be inferior to that of multi-detector CTPA due to technical factors such as patient movement and vessel overlap, as well as inter-observer variability in interpretation. Because multi-detector CTPA is currently the standard of care for PE detection, there are now far fewer cases in which catheter pulmonary angiography is indicated or necessary. And these are now largely confined to situations in which catheter-directed thrombectomy or thrombolysis is thought to be clinically indicated or before placement of an inferior vena cava filter. Ultrasound, transthoracic and transesophageal studies are generally not indicated. Because of its high association of DVT and PE, US evaluation of venous drainage of the lower extremity is probably indicated. So presence of DVT does not indicate the presence of PE, but may increase its likelihood. Positive DVT studies may identify patients with high risk of subsequent PE. A negative extremity ultrasound study does not exclude PE, although it signifies decrease its likelihood. So lower extremity venous ultrasonography, compression ultrasonography is preferred. You have to look for compressibility, respiratory phase delay, and augmentation. So what are the advantages? Cost effective, portability, may avoid further diagnostic imaging if positive limitation. It is the first line if radiologically imaging contraindicated or not readily available. It is helpful to rule out DVT in patient with non-diagnostic VQ scan. So prevalence of DVTs is 82% in patients with PE due to compression duplex ultrasound is the primary diagnostic test for DVT in patients having proximal leg symptoms. So MRA and MR perfusion imaging can provide rapid non-invasive evaluation of ventral and segmental pulmonary arteries. While there are no studies to date suggesting that there is risk to developing fetus, and there is also no proof that the use of gadolinium containing constragens is safe, they should therefore be used only when clearly indicated. So advantages of MRI is lack of ionizing radiation. There are many disadvantages like respiratory and cardiac motion artifact, suboptimal resolution for peripheral pulmonary arteries, complicated blood flow patterns, gadolinium enhanced MR angiography, insufficient sensitivity, and high rate of technical inadequate images. This is the MR imaging demonstrating the embolic material in the right pulmonary artery, in the right upper and lower lobes, in the left liminal pulmonary artery. So this is the summary. PE remains a common and important condition. Chest radiograph cannot exclude or confirm PE, but is important. In general, any test that can confirm either DVT or PE is sufficient. Only certain studies, however, have sufficient accuracy to exclude PE. Multi-slice CT pulmonary angiography is the current standard of care to confirm or exclude PE. VQ scanning appears to also have high accuracy, oral accuracy. In pregnancy with radiation particularly concerned, MRI can be done. Thank you.